good morning. This is Kim De Silva from Language of Relationships, and welcome to the Spanglish World Networks on Zingo TV channels 250 and 251. Please remember to download both the Zingo TV app on the respective app stores on iOS and Android devices. While you download, make sure to rate and leave a comment. The app is free. Zingo TV is also available on Google Chromecast, Amazon Fire, and Fire TV sticks. Roku sticks, also on all smart TVs 2016 forward. All right, so let's get into today's show. Um, Last week, my husband and I celebrated our 15th wedding anniversary. And I have to say, at first we were just like, yes, 15. It's a nice number. It's a nice rounded number. But we've been going to church and every so often, and I don't know what it was like, the last 6 months or so, or 6 to 12 months in church, we had all of these couples coming up to celebrate their 40th wedding anniversary and their 50th. Even there was one couple celebrating their 60th wedding anniversary. So we're like, 15 seems like a really small number to, be getting all excited about. And then, we talked about it some more and we're like, no, the bottom line is we are celebrating our 15 years together because it is special. Every year you are with your significant other, there are things to celebrate. And you might say, but it's been a hard year or it's been a hard last few years. But here's the thing. No matter how many negative things are happening in that space, there are also going to be moments for celebration. And part of retraining our psyches to be more mindful, to be more positive, is to hold on to some of those more celebratory events and enjoy them, acknowledge them, appreciate them, yes, celebrate them. Because it is possible to be both at the same time. It is possible to be going through something difficult and to be frustrated with it, but simultaneously acknowledging the joy in the more positive elements. So yeah, we celebrated our 15th anniversary. We took an early trip last month to the Bahamas. We had a lovely 4 days over there, where we did absolutely nothing but spend time together, eat really good food, and have some great drinks. And on our actual anniversary last week, we spent the day at home and had a dinner with our boys. Our boys who were very, very, very clear that they would have preferred to spend the time with us in the Bahamas rather than, just have dinner at home. But no, that was definitely not a trip for children to be included on. And that's part of what I'm going to be talking about today. I'm just going to highlight it because you do need time away from your kids. You need time away from your daily routine. You need time that is just the two of you. And I'm not talking about just one day. I'm saying, every couple of years, really, you want to be spending some time on a getaway. All right. When we get into the 15 tips, and we get to that point, I'll be sharing with you some different ideas because it does not have to be a 4-day vacation in the Bahamas. It can literally be something much more budget friendly. It's working with what you have, being creative, but being committed to the idea of spending that time together. Okay, so let's get into these 15 tips that I have for you to have a happy, healthy, thriving marriage. And these are taken straight from my own 15 years. Have we had 15 happy years? Yes, I would say so. Have they been problem-free, challenge-free? Absolutely not. Please, who has a problem-free 15 years together? And I always tell you, we 15 years married, but we've been together 24 years. So more than half of my life, I've been with the same person, same for him. And so, yes, we have definitely had our share of challenges. But for the most part, we have been very happy together, and there are certain things that I think account for that. And he and I talk about these things sometimes, and those are some of the things that have made it into my list of 15 tips for, well, after 15 years of being married. So let's dive right in. Number one for me, daily compliments. Now, if you've been listening to this show for a little, any time since we've started, or if you follow me on Instagram at De Silva, you really should follow me on Instagram, by the way. Um, you will see that I talk a lot about compliments, because what we focus on, we amplify, right? And when you are complimenting somebody or something, what you are doing is looking at a positive element of it, and you're spending time acknowledging that positive element. So, same thing I talked about before, focusing on the positive sides. And no, it's not trite, it's not overdone. In fact, it's underdone. And don't think that you are ignoring the negative. You're not ignoring the negative. You can never ignore the negative, all right? Your brain is not wired to ignore the negative. Your brain is wired to focus on it. That's why you need to focus on the positive, okay? So, daily compliments. We do try to express admiration and gratitude for each other, and it can be for the simplest things. Making a cup of coffee, remembering to pick up groceries. Someone looks nice. You tell them. Tell your spouse these things, because they forget for themselves. All right. And you are the one there who can help build them up and remind them of these things. Remind them of what you appreciate about them. Remind them of what you admire about them. Remind them of what you like about them. All right. You may have heard me talk about the 5-to-1 ratio. Dr. John Gottman, a leading marriage research expert, he talks a lot about the 5-to-1 ratio, where for every one negative interaction, you should be having at least 5 positive interactions to offset it and to keep your relationship growing. Compliments count. They help you raise that ratio to get nearer to the 5. Okay. And interestingly enough, that same number 5 comes up. Dr. Joyce Brothers talks about it, and she says that she firmly believes something as simple as complimenting your spouse 5 times a day can save your marriage. Now, all right, realistically, maybe we can't hit 5 compliments a day. I think who has time to spend staring into each other's eyes, complimenting each other 5 times a day? Well, first of all, you can send it in a text or leave it in a note, but at least get up to 3. All right, 3 compliments a day for your spouse. 3 things you like about them. And even if it's some of the same things that you're saying over and over again, that's all right. Because if those are the things that you really like, then those are the things you want to keep seeing. And by complimenting it, you encourage them to keep repeating it. All right. Next on our list, number 2, kiss often. Yes, kiss often. So we are pretty good and pretty consistent with goodbye kisses in the morning and hello kisses in the evening, and those are reminders for each other that we cherish each other. It's also a good way to, you've heard the stories of people who leave each other in the morning expecting to come home, be together again later that evening, and something happens and they're not. You understand as well that when we come home in a bad mood, or when we are home and we are in a bad mood and our spouse comes home, and then we just start off that reconnection time on a bad footing, how that can spiral out of control and lead to a very uncomfortable evening and night. So, taking the time to greet each other, kiss each other, hug each other when you reunite, it's very important for kind of just acknowledging each other, acknowledging that you are happy to be around each other. And no, it's not always easy, especially when times are difficult. So, what I would say is that it's something that you can strive towards. If you don't start with that kiss, hello, maybe a hug, maybe a hand on a shoulder, some sort of physical connection, which we're going to get to as well. And another John Gottman tip is the 6 second kiss. Another one I love, 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 love to talk about. 6 second kiss, no distractions, literally just kissing for 6 seconds, eyes closed, touch each other. And you might say, well, 6 seconds doesn't sound very long. It actually is. You'd be amazed at how quickly our attention gets pulled away. A peck on the lip, that doesn't take very long. If you focus on 6 seconds of kissing, you'll be amazed where that can take you. So try that at least once a day. All right. Number 3 on the list, thankfulness, gratitude. If you're watching this show, I suspect you have at least read something somewhere or seen something somewhere that talks about the power of gratitude. So you already knew about it. But I suppose I can remind you. Um, Gratitude has a way of rewiring our brains. So remember point number 1 about the daily compliments and focusing on the positive. Well, gratitude also builds on that. So, for example, every morning, when I wake up, I start my day before I allow myself to get out of bed. The first thing I have to do is say a prayer of gratitude, a prayer for all of the things that I am thankful for as I wake up that morning. And some mornings it is I'm thankful for the nice warm bed and I really don't want to get out of. But be thankful for your spouse. Be thankful for the things that you do like about them. All right. But starting the morning off with that prayer of gratitude really helps me. Well, let me give you some of the science behind it, right? When you are in a state of gratitude, you're actually releasing oxytocin. Oxytocin is the love hormone. Oxytocin is the feel good hormone. So you are starting to wire your brain to release this hormone that is going to put you in a better mood. You're starting your day off not stressed about the emails you have to reply to, not stressed about all the chores you still have to get done, not stressed about the kids who take forever to get ready for school. Oh, yes, I know. So, yes, I need to release my oxytocin before I go deal with them. That spending that moment in gratitude helps to calm me, which then puts me in a good mood to spend time with my husband and my children. And when I talk to people who do some sort of gratitude practice first thing in the morning, they all report that it really does help with their relationships, not just with their partners, but with their children and the people that they have to interact with on a daily basis. It's not a cure. It's not a cure for all of the problems that you're having, but what it does do is it helps you cope a little bit better. Okay? Um, and yes, after I finish with my gratitude prayer, I usually throw in another one there for help with the things that need improving. Because, yes, just like you, my list of things that need improving is never too far from my mind either. Okay, what else do we have on our list? We are up now to number 4. So, number 4, something that has helped us over the last 15 years is to pray together. And I'll be honest, it's something that, we are a work in progress in that regard. It's something that, we would like to do more of. And we're working on it. But I'll tell you what, that commitment to praying together or the act of praying together, it reminds us of our greater purpose. Okay, it reminds us of who we truly serve when we choose to love each other well. All right. This isn't about me alone. It's not about him alone. It's not about just the two of us. There is a third person in this marriage. Okay. It's God, by the way, not some random dude off the side of the street. So remembering that we have been put here for a bigger purpose beyond just the two of us. It's very humbling, and it helps us to um, treat each other well. Okay, because we're not just treating each other well, we're treating we're showing our love and gratitude for our maker through how we treat each other as well. um, and then if you're saying, well, that's not really something we do, we don't really pray, we're not particularly religious, that's okay. It's essentially this practice of praying together. It is a type of spiritual intimacy. It is about recognizing a higher power, of recognizing something greater than yourselves. So there are people who they're not religious, but they would look at um, something like volunteer activities that they can do together, because what they're doing is together they are serving a greater good. And that's what this piece is about, serving a greater good together. All right. So number 5, so we are almost one third way through our list. Number 5, fun dates. I mean, I'm sure you've heard me talk about dating your mate, continuing to date your mate. Date night, yes, but I also want you not to get caught up in the whole. We had a whole show on date night a couple months ago. We're not stressing about date night per se. While date night is important, what I want you to really get here is that it's not a mundane routine activity. Okay, this is something that is novel. In fact, one of our 4 basic human needs is novelty. And you might think, well, shouldn't it be like food and shelter? Well, yeah, that comes under the security aspect. But novelty, we get bored quickly. All right. And in this very fast-paced world, our attention spans are even smaller. But something like switching up how you spend time together can really, really work wonders for your relationship. So I call them mini adventures. All right, because you want to keep a sense of wonder and adventure in your marriage. So mini adventures are exciting and they allow us to fully enjoy each other's company. Okay, and this is what I'm saying. It's not just about date night, it's also about trying new things. Try karaoke for the first time, which we did earlier this year, and oh my gosh, I was so bad. I don't think he was much better, but it was fun. I mean, it really was absolute fun. We had such a good time together, trying something we had never tried before with each other. And that's what you want to capture. Okay, take a painting class, go on a hike, a spontaneous drive somewhere, something different. All right. And that's what you want to have regularly occurring in your daily life. You alone know what your schedule is like. I hear a lot of people talking about how they don't have much time. They don't have much time for themselves, much personal time, far less for time together. You guys, make the time. It really is that simple. And you're telling me, no, it's not. I have this. Your marriage is a priority. Whatever you make a priority in your daily life, you find the time for, no matter what it is. Put your marriage at the top of that list. It needs to be there, especially if you are not completely happy in your relationship, if you're trying to reignite the spark in your relationship. The only way that spark is going to get relit is if you are spending high quality time together. So make it happen, because you can do it you do it for other things. All right. Okay. Now let's get on to another one on this list that you might be like, oh, we don't do enough of that. Frequent touch. Now, when I say frequent touch, what am I referring to? All sorts of touches, okay? Non-sexual touches and sexual touches too, they both count. So everything from holding hands, cuddling on the couch, brushing each other's shoulders as you pass each other in a hallway, those things all count, all right? And then, yes, more intimate touches. Those things build your physical connection, but also your emotional connection. Okay, don't shy away from physically touching each other. I would say, again, this is something you should be aiming to have some sort of physical contact with your spouse at least 3 to 5 times a day. Okay, even if you're both kind of zoning out, watching TV or scrolling your phone, you can sit right up next to each other on the sofa. Okay. Aim to get that physical touch in. That physical touch starts to release the oxytocin again, the love hormone. Okay. Now, frequent physical touch leads me into point number 7, which is all about intimacy. So yes, sex. But you see, I think when we say the word sex, some people just totally switch off. They're like, we just don't have time for that, or I'm just never in the mood, or my partner just only touches me when they want to have sex. Okay, let's call it what it actually is that we're trying to get at here, which is physical intimacy. And that's a huge part of keeping your romantic connection. Listen, the bottom line is your marriage is different from all of your other types of relationship, not because you are such great friends, but because you have this physical intimacy, this romantic connection. So you have to nurture it to keep this relationship so very different and so much more special than your other relationships. Okay. So a couple points on this, especially where that time issue comes in. We have 3 kids. We are 3 boys. We are very, very, very busy, and sometimes it's difficult to find the time. What we do, and this is why I want to say, listen, if you have to sneak a 5 or 10 minutes somewhere, do it. Just do it. All right. For some people, spontaneous intimacy is not easy, but I'll tell you one thing: there's never a perfect time. For most of us in the types of lives that we lead right now, there is never a perfect time. So don't be waiting for the perfect moment. It may never come. Um, do it where you can. But scheduling intimacy is something that you can consider. Some people say, well, if I have to schedule it, we lose some of the excitement. It's supposed to be spontaneous. No, it's not actually. And especially for women as we get older, that type of spontaneous intimacy is actually hard to get our minds into. But scheduling it allows us to kind of get our minds ready for it. We can then build up a mood to be ready for it at the time that we said we were going to do it. Okay, so don't think of scheduling as something that's unromantic. In fact, it can be even more romantic because it's something to look forward to. All right, you can enjoy getting ready. Your partner has that anticipation building up just like you do. So it actually can be incredibly romantic and exciting, because instead of like, oh, look here, now go. No, it's like, oh wow, look at all of this, look at all this thought that can go into it. It depends on your season of life. For some people, scheduling is an absolute must because of commitments, family commitments, whatever else is going on in your life. For others, the spontaneous intimacy works really well. It just depends on where you are. But the key is that you do prioritize that physical intimacy time together. It's important to building your strong emotional connection. Now, a lot of the other things we're talking about is about building up that emotional connection, because we know and understand that for many of us that we need to have that really strong emotional connection to be open to the physical connection. So these things go hand in hand, and they both feed into each other and back around. Okay? So, back again on the note of building up anticipation, we come to point number 8, which is texting or messaging during the day. Um, you know how your day goes, right? I'm sure if you're anything like me and you click on your partner's name in WhatsApp or whatever messaging service you use, you probably have a really long message, or I shouldn't, not really long messages, but a really long chat history between each other. Whether it's pick up the dry cleaning, don't forget this in the grocery, coordinating kids' schedules, coordinating things that have to get done before you get home, coordinating things that have to get done at home, reminders, you know, shopping lists, all sorts of things go into that chat. One other thing that should be going into that chat are little flirty messages, and they can be spicy or sweet. It's again taking that time to remember each other and send each other something. Sometimes it's funny memes that mean something to the two of you. So when you send it, yes, you had a good laugh, but it's an inside joke for the two of you, so you really enjoy it, and you know why the person sent it to you. Okay. um it also builds anticipation for when you're back together later that evening. um And you may have also seen it. Some of those of you who are on Instagram all the time, there are tons of these. You know, the text I sent my husband at 2 p.m. when I was full of energy and looking forward to tonight, versus me tonight when I'm exhausted and trying to run away from him. It happens, right? But I'll tell you something though. Keeping those little cheeky, spicy texts going through the day, that banter, it keeps you at the front of their mind. And your partner may have a job, or you may have a job where you cannot be on your phone often. You may only have a chance maybe once for the day to check in. That's okay. If that's your reality, that's your reality. They know, okay? But if you have that chance to check in, do check in. Do send them something that's more personal, that's between the two of you, as opposed to just about your crazy, hectic life. All right? Okay. Number 9. Now we're back to the romantic getaway part. Okay. So remember I said that these romantic getaways are needed. Well, they are breaks from your routine, the monotony of your routine. It's a break from parenting, which we know is absolutely exhausting. As much as we love and adore our children, they all work. Um, these breaks help to rejuvenate our relationship. Okay. And yes, it would be lovely if you could plan, a week away somewhere exotic and exciting, but it doesn't have to be. All right. You can go camping for 2 days, 2 or 3 days in the next town over. You can take a road trip and spend nights at B&Bs or hotels or motels along the way. You can rent an RV. You can maybe one of your friends lives near to a beach. Go visit them, stay nearby them. There are things you can do that do not have to break the bank. But the key here is that you commit to spending that quality time together away from your regular daily life, away from your kids. We love them, but we cannot connect as husband and wife on that much deeper level, or reconnect on that much deeper level, if we are studying what they are doing and what is the next meal to prepare for them. Okay, so finding that time to be together away from our daily routines is very important. It helps so much with the reconnection, and it's something that when you plan, you look forward to, and it gives you those little moments of high intention connection when you're excited about your trip. Okay, as I said, you can hop on a plane or you can drive to the next town. Key here is time together away from the daily monotonies. All right. So, time together, wonderful. But what about something more day to day? Well, that is what brings me to point number 10, which is informal but regular check-ins. So this is where we start bringing in that C word, communication. I have a whole lot of stuff to talk to you about that bit, but before we get there, let's talk about, check-ins. So remember what I mentioned focusing on the positive, right? And so when you're on your date nights, for example, and you are having that exciting time together and you are connecting that way, I always suggest you stay away from contentious issues. Anything that causes your tempers to rise or raises tension, stay away from those topics on date nights, because date nights is meant to be something that is sweet and fun and enjoyable. But there are things in our relationship that need attention, that need work, that need to be fixed, that need to be improved. So this is one of those areas where we don't focus on the positive, but rather grab the things that aren't going so well and handle them. So these regular check-ins, now I like to say it for us it's informal. Okay, after all of these years together, yes, we can have in the same 1 hour time span a really sweet conversation and an intense one, and get some of those things worked out. But for some people, you may be at a stage where it's like you do need to discuss what is a good time for us to talk about this particularly hard issue. And that's okay. Schedule a time where you can talk about it. And this is not your date night, but you may want to then make an arrangement. Well, okay, we are actually going to go have a cup of coffee on this day to talk about this thing. All right. But those check ins, one of the things I would advise you when you're having these check ins, start on a positive note. All right. It makes the negative, it makes it, the positive stuff helps cushion the negative, right? So start on a positive note. Look, this went really well. This worked. I'm happy we did that. Thank you for doing this. Start on the positive. Then, okay, here's how we can do this better. What do you suggest that we do to make this easier? How can we confront this issue? Whatever it is. And we're going to talk about disagreements later on as well, and that idea of being a unified team. But those regular check ins, what it does is it gives you that space to vent. It gives you that permission to vent. Because very often we spend so much of our day venting and complaining that seems to take it over. But if we know that we have a dedicated space where our partner is going to understand this is the space, a safe space for us to do this, then maybe you can save some of the ranting for that time. And even in that context, again, it's how we speak to our partner. And no, it's not textbook speech. And no, you're not trying to talk to your partner like a child. No, it's not that you have to change how you talk to soothe egos. Listen, I know you've seen lots of these things on social media. But this is your marriage, okay? This is your relationship. If you want to change things, then yes, if what you're doing right now isn't working, try some of this instead. If talking the way that you want to talk has been working, then great. If it hasn't been working, well, try something different. Okay? These check in times, yes, it's a spaced event, but it's also meant to listen. And yes, part of being effective and getting your point of view across is to be mindful of your choice of words and your tone of voice and your body language. Okay? These are all things to consider when you're having these conversations. All right. Number 11. Actually, I'm going to skip a little bit and come back to number 11, but let's go with as we're on the topic, disagreements, right? So, first of all, disagreements are not the end of the world. They are totally natural and completely expected. In fact, if you're not having some disagreements, you may want to check in on that. You are two totally different people. Okay. You are not going to agree on everything. You were raised differently, and you may even be trying to raise your kids completely different again from how both of you were raised. So, listen, you're going to have some conflicts, and that's okay. Some couples actually thrive on that sort of friction. Okay, it feeds a different need for them. But the couples that actually enjoy that level of friction also make sure they resolve their conflicts, and that beyond the conflict they remember they love each other and they respect each other. Okay, so here's the thing. When you're having a disagreement, you probably both want to be right, because we are human, right? We want to get our point across, but we don't just want to get our point across. We want the other person to agree with it. You have to let that go. All right. They don't have to agree with you. They just don't. You don't have to agree with them. You really don't. What you do want, though, is to remember that both of you are on the same side. That's the side of your marriage. And that very often, when these conflicts come up, these challenges come up, we're not actually arguing. It's not you versus me, it's us together versus the problem. What happens, though, is that we have conflicting ideas on how this problem is manifesting and what to do about it. And that's where we get into the difficulties. That's why it's important to remember it's you and me against the problem. And we might not be seeing eye to eye, but ultimately we have very similar goals. I think one that comes up very often in the ladies that I speak to, it's money. For example, how to handle money and expenses with their spouse. An interesting thing is that in most cases, both spouses have the same end goal. They want to use their financial resources for the benefit of their family. That includes quality times together. It also includes safety for the family. It's things, but they see their financial resources as something that can benefit the whole family. It's the how. One might want to spend the money on events and vacations, or fun activities, and another one is more concerned with saving. Interestingly enough, both partners still want to have, they're still building up a cushion for their family. Their goals are ultimately the same, but how they get there is different. And that's what you want to remember, that you now have the chance to kind of marry your difference of opinion and find real compromise. And why I say real compromise, just not compromises, because very often when we compromise, we feel like we're giving in. So no, compromise isn't meant for you to feel like you're giving in. It's meant to be a real solution that you both agree to and commit to. All right, that's real compromise. Not then you turn around the next day and be like, well, I only said that so. Or well, you were so adamant about that. That's why I agreed. That's not compromise. That's cheating the process. That's taking a shortcut and it doesn't work. Okay? Which is also around the issue of unresolved conflicts. That's why you have repeating some arguments on repeat, because you haven't resolved the actual conflict issue. Some advice out there is that don't go to bed angry, or don't go, well, actually, don't go to bed angry is a good piece of advice. What I would say though is don't fall into the trap of thinking you have to settle the argument before you go to bed. So this is something you kind of decide with your partner in advance. And I know my husband and I did this, when we were younger, and we thought, right, we can't go to bed until we settle our arguments. And I remember we had some arguments that we were up really, 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 really late and getting more and more irritable with each other because we were tired, but we thought we couldn't go to bed until we'd settle the argument. That's not what this is about, right? What I would actually suggest is that you get to that point where you are tired and now tempers are even more frayed. So here's what you say. I don't think I can continue this conversation right now, but I love you and I want us to can we continue it tomorrow? The thing is, if the two of you have had this plan in place from before, and you know that there are times where you're going to have a disagreement and you may not be able to get to the bottom of it before it's time for bed, but you have the agreement with each other that you will settle yourselves and agree to disagree for the moment, hug, kiss, go to bed, and tackle the issue again when you are refreshed. Okay, so it's not to not settle it, but what it is that before you go to bed, don't go to bed, yes, don't go to bed angry with each other, but go to bed knowing that you'll come back to it. But ultimately, you love each other and you're going to find a way together to work through it. So much of what I'm saying here, I know you're thinking it sounds simpler. It sounds simpler than it is to actually do. Yes, that's true. A lot of these things, life, a lot of the things that will work and create a better life for you are easy said on paper and on black and white. Oh, super simple. It's the implementation part that's hard. Okay? That's where you might need help sometimes. And I think this is what a lot of people don't realize. They think, well, all the answers are there. I can do this on my own. You probably can, but sometimes you need a little bit of help to do it. Okay? You need someone to help you with the implementation part, to keep you committed to the implementation part. When you're not seeing the results immediately that you want to see, that's where you need the additional support. And that's okay, because you know what? We actually weren't born knowing how to have a happy, healthy, thriving relationship. We weren't. Some of us were fortunate enough to grow up in families where we saw it and could replicate it. Some of us weren't so fortunate. Some of us have done a lot of work on ourselves, a lot of research, we've had those conversations, those hard conversations, and we've learned from it. But for many of us, we need a little bit of support. And that's okay. Accepting support isn't really a bad thing if on the other side of it is that happy, healthy, thriving, exciting relationship that lights you up that you've always wanted. Okay? All right, so let's get our list wrapped up. Okay. Choose to spend time together. Number 12, choose to spend time together. Listen, the only way to keep that spark burning, told you already, is to spend time together. Where in my day am I supposed to find it? Wherever you're willing to make it. Sometimes that might mean waking up 15 minutes earlier to have a cup of coffee or tea or water, whatever it is you drink first thing in the morning together. It might mean, for me, sometimes it means rescheduling an evening meeting so that I can have dinner with my husband and family. Um, it might mean putting off some work that I really would like to get done, but I can reschedule it so I can go to bed earlier and have some more quality time with my husband like that. Yes, it may mean saying no to certain activities with other people so that we can spend the time together. The bottom line is you want your partner to know they are a priority for you, and you want to know that you are a priority for them. This is why we want to make time for each other. Always be trying to find ways to spend high quality time together. All right. I have a list of like what I call mini dates, like dates that take like 5 to 10 minutes to do. So yes, they're not dates in the sense of you're getting up and going somewhere, but what they are 10 minutes of intentional time together. Nothing fancy, like literally a game of tic-tac-toe. I have a game of tic-tac-toe as one of the suggestions on that list. How long does it take to play a game of tic-tac-toe? Best out of three even. Doesn't take long. But it's that commitment to just no other distractions, you and me, something fun. Let's get it done. All right. Where are we on our list now? Number 13, I think we are at. Okay. Be kind. You might think, oh, how overly simplistic is that? It's not really. It's not. And it's actually very important. Because when you've been with somebody for a while, it's easy to take them for granted, right? It's easy to become complacent. It's easy to live in a state of what they need to do better. And it's also easier to be a bit more selfish. Okay. And I think one of the things we also have to accept as humans, we have an inherent characteristic is that we are selfish. We have to see about ourselves. It's how we survive. Okay. Now we train ourselves to be less selfish. All right. But our default to selfishness is it's natural. So let's spend some time on how we can be less selfish. And one of those ways is to be kind to our partners. Be kind to ourselves too. Huh? And that's another, I know we talked about compliments before. Compliments are important to give to others, but also to give to ourselves. Because if we're not gentle with ourselves, if we're not kind to ourselves, if we're not positive about ourselves, it's really hard to spread that positivity to other people as well. All right. So some days are hard. Some days are really, really, really hard. And you are totally fried and drained and angry. And it's easy to take that out on those closest to us, our children, our spouses. And this is where I want to tell you that we have to make a really concerted effort not to do that. All right. Okay. And that brings me to point number 14, in that effective communication starts in how we treat each other. So all this talk about having great communication happens when we are treating each other well. Then we're more responsive to each other, and we're kinder to each other, and we listen to each other, and we have empathy for each other. So communication does not happen on its own. It does not exist in a vacuum. It's not just about the words that we say. It's about our actions. Our actions speak louder than our words, as you well know. And that brings me to point number 15, my last tip after 15 years of marriage. Remember that we are modeling happy, healthy marriages for our children. We want them to be able to do this too in their own lives. That's what we're teaching them. We're teaching them by showing them. We are creating a safe foundation for them, a stable home for them. Okay? Part of being able to do that is to prioritize our marriages. And we prioritize our marriage. We're not just doing it for ourselves, we're not just doing it for our spouse, we're doing it for our children as well. Okay? So do not be afraid to prioritize your marriage. It serves your family well. And that brings me to the end of my 15 tips after 15 years of marriage. I hope to see you next week as well. I might have a little treat for you, all about some mealtime bliss. Yeah. All right. So I'll see you next week. This show can also be heard on the Spanglish Radio Network. Please check it out at spanglishworld.ca for all the news and programming. Spanglish World, watch it, hear it, read it, download it, live it.